Hey.
Hello everybody, it's Rachel from Little Learners HQ here, and this is our first ever live on Instagram. In fact, my first ever live.
Mine too, actually.
Yeah. So if we are nervous, then I'm sorry. Might get the giggles a little bit.
We definitely will get the giggles.
But we are here at Little Learners HQ with Lou from the Parent Behaviour Coach. And this is something that we've never done before, but we just want to trial it. So we're going to have a bit of a Q&A session with Lou, and you've submitted a load of questions. We've been inundated with questions, so thank you so much for all of these. We're going to get through as many as we can, but we've only got half an hour, so we'll try our best. She's good.
Thanks.
Good.
I'm not paying her for this in the slightest, to be truthful.
She's good. So
we've got quite a few people that have joined so far, haven't we? We've got Sophie. Hello, Sophie.
Oh, hello.
Is that Kaylee as well? I haven't got my glasses on, and
that's Natalie, one of our franchisees. Hello.
So, I think the big thing is, just to introduce myself, I'm Lou. I run a program called the Parent Behaviour Coach. Now, what I do for a daytime job is I'm a safeguarding and behaviour consultant, and I work for the government, I work for national charities, I work for schools to help them understand and to respond to a child's behaviour. And one of the big things I'm really passionate about is it's really great that there's lots of things for those that work with children, but I feel that parents are just completely left to their own devices. And as a parent myself, I know how lonely and hard it can be to kind of like figure your way through this and respond to some of the most challenging times. So all my work is based upon what I know works, and I'm really keen to like help parents understand something really simple, really easy to use, that they can use straight away and kind of get results. Because when you're a parent, one of the biggest things that I do when I work with parents, so I work with parents in groups and I do workshops, but I also do one-to-one private coaching. And the biggest thing I come across is, first of all, parents feeling so guilty, like they should know how to respond to their child's behaviour.
Yeah, parent guilt.
Yeah, parental guilt's massive, and parental shame, and I feel it as well. We all feel it, but it doesn't help us, and actually we just constantly feel worse.
It's not proactive at all, is it, parent guilt?
It's not, it just doesn't do anything. So, first of all, parents tend to come to me feeling guilty because they don't know, and they feel like they should be able to know everything to go with a child's behaviour, and you can't know everything about it. But you can learn some simple tools, simple techniques to help you in any difficult situations.
And we learn as we go, don't
we?
And
do you know what? The best learning comes from our mistakes, and I've certainly had moments like that we learn from as well. So the great thing is about Rachel inviting me along to Little Learners HQ to kind of talk about this is Little Learners obviously work with a lot of parents across the UK, so they hear a lot of these issues and they're really keen to support parents, and I'm really keen to kind of help Little Learners understand some tools that can get results. So we're going to ask a few questions, and I'll keep it as brief as I possibly can, but either follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and I do try and post regular updates. So if you ask any questions, feel free, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. So Rach, do you want to ask some questions?
So we're going to go through, these are the questions that have already been submitted to us prior to the live broadcast, whether it was private message or comments. We'll keep them all pretty much anonymous, But if anything relates, and you hear anything that we're talking about in this live and you think, I've got a similar scenario and you want a question answered, just comment, and I'll be keeping an eye, and we'll try and fit it in. We'll try and fit in the questions. Hello, we've got Antonia, we've got Kelly. Brilliant.
I've got loads.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll start, and then as I say, just jump in with any questions. Don't be afraid. You'll be surprised how similar these questions are.
I think both of us as parents, when we looked and went, we get that totally.
Definitely. So, right, shall we start with, where do you want to start? Tantrums?
Yeah, tantrums. Quick fix on tantrums.
Terrible twos, etc. Teenager. So we've got one here. When my 5-year-old is starting to go into a meltdown, I let her know I understand she's sad, frustrated, then I let it happen. I pretty much ignore the tantrum or the meltdown. Do you think that's the right thing to do? Is it harsh to ignore?
Right, okay, really, really good question. There's 3 things that I would say if you're dealing with a tantrum. You've got 3 options. You can either challenge the tantrum, ignore the tantrum, or divert the source of the tantrum. And what's brilliant is whoever's posed that question has recognised that the child needs to be safe, because the first thing is they'll have a tantrum, and I don't know if you've had it with yours, but they will literally throw themselves in the road, they'll throw themselves on the floor, they'll kick and hit, and there can be a danger aspect. So the first thing is making sure that they're safe. Now, tantrums can be quite embarrassing for parents. So what I see with that is, we all know that public feeling, maybe a supermarket, and they throw themselves on the floor because they've not got what they wanted. They're screaming at the top of their voice, and sometimes you can feel like the worst parent, or caring, you're a bit harassed by behaviour. What sometimes happens there is parents can quickly try and respond in the moment, and might use techniques that like scare or frighten or threaten their child. Now, on the long run, that doesn't work, and it actually can fuel the tantrum. So I would advise against getting into that. The key thing you've got to remember is, when you're dealing with a tantrum, model the behaviour you want them to learn to grow. And I know that's an old cliche, but if you're screaming and getting upset and you're shouting at them to try and get them to stop the tantrum, that's just going to show them that that's okay. So what we need to do, as frustrating as it is try and come from a calm place. So compose yourself if you're getting upset. Try and take some deep breaths and approach it with this way. So a great technique is, yes, you can ignore. You can, as long as the child's safe, choose to understand what is happening and what's causing that tantrum. But in that immediate place, when a child's in a tantrum, worst time to try and rationalise with them, because they're so driven by their emotion, and actually they haven't learned how to process that emotion, so that's why it's coming out in a tantrum.
They're not thinking straight either, are they? They're not in a place where they can fully understand what you're saying, I suppose, as well. Because
it might be what you say, for example, they want chocolate and you said no to the chocolate. So what I would say to that is, make sure that you let them tantrum in the way that they're going to, without a panic of I need to immediately stop it. And that could be that you ignore the technique, or you use a diversion technique, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But whatever you do not try and rationalise, do not try and control and challenge that behaviour in the moment where you say that, come on, you've just been silly, that stops it. That can often fuel the tantrum, and I know some people use that technique, and I totally get that. So is it the right thing to do? As parents, it's a trial and error situation, so sometimes it works, sometimes it won't. Now I'll let you into a technique of understanding a tantrum. So the way that our brain works is, if we get an image in our brain, like, I want a piece of chocolate, I really want a piece of chocolate, and I'm not getting that piece of chocolate. So I'll use techniques as a toddler that I know have worked to get whoever to give me the chocolate. Now, the quickest button push for us is screaming, meltdown. I'll embarrass whoever it is. I'll scream as loudly as possible because they'll want to stop.
I think I've done that before, even.
Yourself?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, Ray. I'm not surprised. So we use what behaviour works. So if you keep giving in to tantrums and meltdowns, they're just going to say, right, that technique's worked, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So you've got to be consistent in your approach to tantrums, and you've got to make sure that you are trying to help the child learn a different coping strategy to get what they want. Now, let's not get into the argument of whether you want them to have chocolate or not in that moment. What you want to do is see past the chocolate and think, how can I educate my child to learn something new?
Yeah.
The best way to do that is, when they're talking about, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, every 90 seconds, their brain is trying to justify why they're having a meltdown. So if you keep saying, no, you can't have the chocolate, don't have the chocolate, you're saying chocolate, chocolate, chocolate to them, and they're going, I want chocolate. So they'll keep going on about it. So it just keeps justifying the state, and it can keep going. What we need to do is to try and create a different image in their brain that takes their focus away from tantruming. And it's a bit of a diversion technique. So I use what's called divert. So instead of talking about chocolate and trying to justify that, you try to get them to think about something else. And you know your child best, so you can talk about something else. So what would distract Ollie quickly? Is there anything like an image?
Do you know because I actually attended one of Lou's dealing with difficult behaviour courses, and I came away with just loads of different techniques, and actually I trialled one thing that, and I think you just use it as an example, but I just thought I'm gonna try this. And it was when Ollie was having a tantrum and he was starting to just, as you say, be focused on one thing. I can't remember what it was now. I think that we went shopping. He always expects something to be bought at that shop. If we go to a shop together, what can I have? It's like nothing. Like, we don't have to do this. And what I said is, I think you used the example of, Ollie, can you think of a rainbow coloured minion?
Oh yeah.
And he stopped for a minute, and you could see the cogs turn and thinking, oh, I wonder what that would look like. And he just completely diverted his, and as soon as I caught him in that moment of thinking, we could then continue the conversation and take his mind off. And it was just that distraction technique, and I thought it was really, really good. So now I need to think of different things. I can't keep using multicoloured minions. So
you can, and you should have had Archie in here to kind of demonstrate the little learner's arch.
Yeah.
But the rainbow technique really works quite well because their brain has to create the image of a minion that they've never seen before. So it's actually working really hard. Yeah. So we kind of divert. So after you've seen that it works, keep using what works. I know it sounds really common sense, so it's kind of like, if you've got a visual, it might be that he's into, I don't know, a teddy bear or unicorn or something like that, and try and get him to imagine it a different colour. Or has he got a favourite toy, a favourite soft toy?
iPad.
Alright, okay, so away from technology, but maybe like a teddy bear or something.
Like superhero figures and things like that.
Okay. So maybe he could imagine, say, Batman doing the floss, or whatever dance kids nowadays do, that will help him create a different image. And that actually, if you can kind of get them to work on a different image, it gives their brain about 90 seconds to think of something else, and that actually brings the tantrum down quite a bit.
It calms them as well a little bit, doesn't it?
It just gives them time to compose, because when you're paddying and you are having a tantrum, it's really exhausting. You know yourself, if you've ever like had a big crying session and it's just like, I'm drained after crying. It's exactly the same for a child, really. It drains them more. So it just gives them something fun to replace as well, rather than getting in a battle. Now, use that technique long enough, and don't, again, in that situation, to kind of go back to the chocolate. Don't give in to the chocolate, but try and divert and keep them moving on. The quickest thing we want to do if there's a tantrum is to make sure they're either thinking of something different or they're doing something different. So if they're having a paddy on the floor, if you can move them along, or just encourage them to move on to somewhere else, that change can help change their state as well, and that really helps. And it's just building it up. Now, I wouldn't address it immediately afterwards, that tantrum, because it's still raw and fresh, and you're like, let's trigger something else. So what I do is just make sure that I do it at a later date.
That's something that I did as well after your course. I would usually do that, and it didn't really make sense. So sometimes I would leave it not long enough, and he would have calmed down, and then I've sort of just made it fresh in his mind again. Whereas we could have revisited it at a later date, where he could have had proper time to reflect on it. And actually, when I've tried that, he's been really quite mature about it for his age, and said, actually, I shouldn't have done that, and blah blah blah. So I think that's really good advice.
So what you want to do after that, once it's calmed down and the chocolate's not going to be a trigger, give them feedback. So make sure you're saying, you wanted the chocolate, but screaming and shouting is not going to get you the chocolate. What do you think you could do to maybe get you the chocolate in the future? Because what you want to do is teach your child different ways of getting what they want without using a tantrum to do that. So it might be, maybe if I'm extra nice to mum or whoever, or I'm going to be polite, or I'm going to ask, I might stand more chance of getting it. So reward them in that sense, with lots of praise, and give them not necessarily the chocolate, but kind of praise them for thinking of a different way to get something without screaming and having a meltdown for it as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does, definitely.
Because it is a bit of a whirlwind, obviously, talking for a few minutes about it, and we can kind of explore that a little bit.
Does that make sense to everybody watching as well? And if you've got any questions or queries or slightly different scenarios, just jump in and comment. And see a few more people have joined us there. So should I move on to the next one?
I'm trying to
So I think we will go to hitting and pushing.
Oh, right, okay.
And biting.
Yeah.
So I've sort of merged two questions in here, but we had one from a parent saying, how do I get my son to stop hitting and biting? We've also got my 2-year-old is usually nice to others, but has just started randomly walking up to other children and pushing them forward. Not all the time, but it just happens out of the blue for no apparent reason. I think he's just doing it for a reaction, as he tells me afterwards when he's pushed someone. I try and keep calm and firmly explain it's not okay, but is there any other way to deal with this behaviour and to stop it from happening?
Okay.
So this is a 2-year-old, so toddler.
Yeah, so 2-year-olds, remember, there's so much learning that kind of goes on in such an early age. We're still as adults, we're still learning what appropriate behaviour and not is appropriate behaviour. So first thing is, like, mindset going to that. 2-year-olds are not oven ready. They've got to learn. The will test boundaries consistently. They're not going to do one thing once and you give them feedback and then you've nailed it. It's got to be repeated over and over again. Now, a 2-year-old testing the boundaries completely. They want to make sure you're consistent in terms of your response to it. So if you say no, that's not very nice or naughty one time, and then you kind of have a different approach next time, they're not going to know. So the biggest bit of feedback I can give you is set boundaries. And we presume that all children should know that hitting or kicking is not appropriate. They don't. They need constant reminder, and sometimes we take that for granted. So we kind of think, oh, they know it. I've told them before. They should know it again.
Yeah.
They don't.
Because they're learning, and they've only been on this earth for 2 years.
Yeah, it's not.
Literally 2 years. So, every time, like you say, every time you're reinforcing it, I suppose it's going in that little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So set a boundary. We do not hit, and keep your language really quick, really short. Don't overcomplicate it. We do not hit. And then what you need to do is give a feedback. You hit. We don't hit because it hurts. What do you think you need to do next time? So what you want to kind of do is structure it. Have been very clear. We don't hit. You've hit somebody. That could have hurt somebody. What do you think you need to do next time?
Yeah.
Try not to use many words and try and keep it as simple as possible. But you must consistently challenge. So, if it's involving violence, I would definitely say make sure that you are challenging it, if not immediately, very quickly afterwards because of that, because you want to reaffirm. But make sure you're not like blaming or inflicting pain or shame upon a child. You've got to see this as a learning opportunity, and you might be really frustrated, and we completely understand that, but a child needs feedback and they need to learn, and they need to learn quite quickly. And the great thing is about that is that child's reflecting, so they're thinking, so they're valuing it, they know that it's wrong, but they're still testing, and what they're trying to do is, can I get what I want by using hitting or kicking?
No. Yeah.
And can I make somebody else do something?
And they're solving their own problem as well, and that's another thing that I tried with Ollie, after I'd spoken to you, is trying to get him to sort of evaluate the situation, and so what could you have done differently, like what shouldn't you have done, and that was a real learning curve as well. So it's not just telling them don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. It's like you say, fully explaining why, and like you say, it doesn't make sense to respond, and it is hard in that situation, because I remember times when Ollie was little, and it might be in a soft play or something like that, and he slashed out, and you feel really embarrassed and quite angry and frustrated that your child has done this to somebody, and you feel a bit helpless, to be honest. But you can't let your anger or aggression come out to that child, because then you're sort of like fighting fire with fire, and you're showing them something that you're telling them not to do. So,
you have to make sure you're modelling the behaviour you want to see, and consistently. But if you do lose your temper, don't feel guilty about it. Don't harbour onto it. I work with a lot of parents that absolutely ridicule themselves over it. Just learn from it and move on and go, okay, I lost my temper, that's happened, but moving forward, I'm going to try the next time something similar happens, not to lose my temper.
We've done that plenty of times. I mean, we all do it. So,
So what we're trying to do is do something a little bit healthier. So make sure for 2-year-old you're realistic about your expectation. Understand why they're trying to do it. Is there a pattern to it? And if you can find it, make sure you are giving a clear set boundary, and that it's not okay to hit. If you hit somebody, you'll hurt them. and what can you do instead, because they've got to understand consequences for their actions, and we want them to understand that hurting somebody is not acceptable. It can damage a relationship. You might get into a lot of trouble as well around it. So.
And we've talked about I've just seen a comment there from Kelly. I'm just going to quickly say before I forget, we've talked about not taking things away from the child as a punishment all the time as well, because you made a good point to me one time, because quite often I'll just go to Lou for parenting advice. I admit it. I'll come in and say, oh, this has happened, and I think one day you said, well, how far are you going to go with that? Are you just going to end up taking everything away? And then and it was, I think it was a scenario of the sleeping in their own bed thing. And at one time Molly just said to me, take it all away.
Doesn't matter.
I want that, so take it all away. I don't want my iPad anymore. And it just doesn't work, does it?
Those techniques don't, they have an expiration date. So what we were trying to do in the work that I'm trying to do is help parents build up strategies and techniques so the child evaluates themselves and can see the consequences, rather than the parent feel they have to administer consequences, and it gets into that battle, because you'll always be up in the ante of punishment, and you can discipline without punishment, and I can talk about that in another session. I'm just going to go back to Kelly's question. Kelly, do you make them apologise to who they have hit or what they have done, and how do you approach it if they won't say sorry? So the biggest thing what you need to do is, in that situation, is you want to make sure that obviously they know it's wrong, but you don't want to damage your relationship with that child by forcing them to do something that they're not ready to do. Now, what we want to do is encourage that process of them reflecting about their behaviour and learning different strategies. And sometimes parents in the moment can quickly right, you need to apologise now, you need to apologise now, control the situation. At that moment, it's probably not going to be genuine, because they haven't had time to reflect. So all they're doing is, it's a tokenistic, I'm saying sorry to make my mum happy. What they need to do is go through a process where they've had time to think about the impact of what they've done, and then for it to be genuine. Don't force an apology, but what I would say is, we don't hit or push somebody. It's not acceptable, it can hurt. What do you think you need to do? And hopefully when you keep using that technique, pretty on they'll get, I need to not do it again, and I need to apologise. Now, quickly as parents, what we try and do is bubble wrap them and tell them what they need to do, without giving them the time to think through what they need to do and rectify what they do. So if they've had the opportunity to rectify what they're doing, they're more likely to warn the outcome and learn from it, and it to be a better resolve, rather than it getting into a battle between you and them. So when you say, we don't hit, you've hit somebody and hurt them, what do you think you need to do? They might be like, I don't know. Okay. So that's at the time when you could say, well, you could go and apologise. Do you think that might make it better? You could not do that next time. But then, in that moment, if they're not willing to do that, leave that and move back to it at a later time. But you have to reiterate and keep going on that it's not acceptable to hurt somebody, and if they do hit somebody, that there'll always be a consequence, and it's what that consequence might be. And it could be that another kid might hit them, or they might get told off by another adult, or that you might be sad or upset by their behaviour as well, and that by them choosing the behaviour of hitting somebody, they're choosing the consequence that comes with it. So in answer to your question, Kelly, don't force an apology in the moment, because it's often not from a sincere place. The biggest thing you want to do is encourage reflection, so the child evaluates that they need to be remorseful and learn from it.
And I think sometimes it's for that other parent.
Yes.
Mostly, it's mostly you.
Yeah.
Coming from you to that other parent, and maybe you should approach it in the way that you say it. Maybe tell them that hitting is bad, and in front of that parent, so they can still see that you're addressing the issue, but you're not doing the whole sorry thing. I think that sometimes is it, isn't it?
I would, because sometimes as parents we do feel pressure, and we feel judged by other parents, and that's one of the hardest things, is dealing with that judgment, and it just makes the situation worse. So we can choose to respond to our child's behaviour in a different way, because we've got an audience around us. Persistently challenge it as well, but have the conversations when it's not in the moment afterwards, of going, do you know, yesterday we went to the park and you hit that little boy, what do you think about that now? You've had some time to think about it. Don't answer the question for them, really give them a chance to think about it. I'm just conscious of time, right?
I know. Well, we're 5 minutes late, weren't we? So we've got the bullying question and the sibling question left. So I don't know which one you want to...
I'd probably go for the bullying one. I don't know what the age of the children is, but I know bullying is such a big issue, so I just want to give you some quick advice on that.
I think they are around 5 years old, so probably reception year 1, but this little one's been bullied in school, and it's had a very bad impact on him. Since the incident, has become so emotional and he's lost his confidence. He doesn't want to go to school, and it's just a big struggle for them all.
And that's terrible. I mean, I know my son went through a phase where he was bullied. As every parent, it's a worst nightmare, and it's about how we respond to it as well. First of all, it's like, is it a one-off incident? Okay, and if it's not and it's repeated, then the first thing is about making sure the school environment's safe. So this is why your relationship with school or nursery is really, really important, and you must communicate to them and try and not get into a situation where you're blaming them, but raising their awareness of what's happening to your child and the impact upon that. Now, from a kind of a legal point of view, the school or the nursery has a legal responsibility to safeguard your child, so they need to make sure that that environment is safe and they're addressing inappropriate behaviour of any other children. To do that, they need to know the situation of it. So feedback to the school and make sure that you're challenging the school's policy, that they are aware of it and they're proactively responding to it. After that, what you can do with that situation is, the biggest bit of advice is don't try and problem solve as much as you would want to do, which is natural because somebody hurts our babies, we want to jump in and protect them, and it's hard. What we've got to do is A, try and prevent it happening, but B, try and help them build up for life skills and tools that help them go through responding, because even as adults we'll come into contact with other people's behaviour that just won't be appropriate and will upset us. So we want to set them up for life. And the biggest way we can do that is encourage them to talk about anything that's worrying or frightening them, that they should be speaking to somebody. And we want that culture from a really early age of children speaking out to somebody. Now, it might be they're speaking to you, or they might feel uncomfortable. It doesn't matter who they're speaking to, as hard as that is as parents, but as long as they're speaking to somebody and that somebody's doing something about it. So we want the message to our child that they're always speaking out if something's worrying or frightening them, that they keep speaking out until it stops. So if they say once and it doesn't stop, they keep talking, and it's really important for our children to understand that they keep talking until it stops, okay? The big thing after that is that we're asking them how do they think they can solve it. So help them come up with strategies and give them the opportunity. Is, do you think if you can keep away from that person, that might make a difference? Do you also, the quick thing when they're growing up at 5 is the filter, the way that the brain works is like they'll see everything negative, that everybody hates them, or depending on the child and the dynamic, but it can be quite easy to get stuck in that routine. We want them to stay realistic about it, to say, why do you think Tom or whoever might be behaving that way to you, and get them to try and see what might be driving their behaviour, to understand that. It's not acceptable and it needs to stop, and it's been challenging, but what we want to do is encourage the child to try and not see that one person is having all of the control over them. And the way that we do that is we try and help them to identify the responses. So it could be that they choose not to listen to it. If they're pushing, can they move away from that? Can they build up, encourage them to do activities that really increase their confidence? So what they're good at 5. So saying he's struggling and his confidence is going, what's he really interested in, and tap him up. In terms of, is he good at like baking or drawing or playing Lego, building train tracks, and really build up the praise, because
doing more of what makes them happy.
Because we want them to think of all the things that they're doing great, rather than just focus on the negative of that one thing negative happening. And it takes time to build up that kind of armour of response to a child's behaviour. And again, the main thing is helping them to speak out, making sure that they're focusing on more positive things so the confidence doesn't do, but giving them the opportunity to be part of the solution and see how they can cope with it as well. And that's, it's not a magic wand that will just solve away all the bullies, but really our children, we need them to grow up understanding and trying to help themselves problem solve and how to respond with other human behaviour.
It's a really difficult one, isn't it?
Oh God, it's hard.
It really hurts you. Like, I'm dreading the age that, Ollie comes back and he's saying that he's getting bullied or picked on, because I think
it's hard.
Yeah, it is really hard. But
And what's hard with that is other parents' behaviour. So if you've got to approach it with another parent, what I'd encourage first is depends on your relationship and the person as a parent. And it can be hard when our child's been accused of being a bullying as well. So I think it's, model the behaviour again. Make sure you're approachable and that you're willing to listen and take on board the feedback, but vice versa. Try if you can to resolve it with the parents. You'll weigh that up. But if not, don't be afraid to involve the schools. But I think, sometimes parents' behaviour, you can see where the child behaviour can kind of come from as well.
Getting nowhere sometimes, isn't it?
So I'm going to shut up. I think we're going to shut up for the last few minutes. Have you got any questions that you just want to ping? If you don't in the live stream, obviously this is the first time we're doing it, and we'll probably do some other ones as well. But we just want to respond to your questions. So you can either
give us some feedback as well. What have you thought? Has it been interesting? Have you learned anything new? Any techniques that you're going to try? We really appreciate the feedback. I mean, we're here. We're both here. We're both not getting paid for this. We're giving this back to you as parents. So feedback would be great. Any more questions would be fab. But yeah, just shoot them in the comments if you do.
Okay. So there's a message on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I'm at the Parent Behaviour Coach, and you're at Little Learners HQ, isn't it?
Little Learners UK. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, aren't you? So she's on all the socials.
But I am a total social media kind of granny. I'm just like.
But I will tag Lou in this video if I can. I don't know what happens to this after.
It's all a learning curve.
I'll tag her. You can get in touch with her at any time. But yeah, I think this is definitely something that we could do again. Because every time I speak to you, I learn something new.
Oh, that's good. In a good way. So thanks, Kelly, for your question. And we'll be signing out if nobody's got a question they want to send us. No. I think we survived our first live broadcast. High five us. Yay!
Well, thank you very much to everybody that tuned in. I think we had a good sort of 50 plus join in there.
Oh, God.
I don't know.
I see names popping up.
So yeah, but if this can be rewatched or anything like that, and there's a comment function, then just leave your comments and we'll go through them
keep an eye on it
and have a little look.
And it might be that you think like half an hour is too long to listen to us whittle on. Oh, thanks for the awesome comment. Yay! It might be that you think this is too long. We're learning and we're open to feedback. So it could be we could just do like a quick 10-minute live.
We could focus on sort of one. Because I think a lot of these questions have multi-layers, don't they? So I think, and I mean, there's one. Well, there's about 30 that we haven't got through. So I'm so sorry, but they're all very, very similar. But yeah, if there's something in particular that you would absolutely love us to focus on for a quick 15 minutes or something like that, then I'm sure we could get that arranged.
And everything I've talked about, I tend to kind of cover in like a day workshop because there's a lot behind it. There's sort of like why a child behaves the way that they do and how you can learn to respond. So we'll try and do something a bit snappier and to the point in terms of feedback as well. I was going to say something, but it totally went out of my mind then. Old age.
Oh, what was it really exciting?
It was really exciting. Maybe we should save that for the next video. It's like build up anticipation. It's like, thanks, Terry.
It's me, mum.
Oh, hiya, Terry. You said your mum was going to come in.
I said she would be watching.
Rachel's biggest fan.
So yeah, what was I gonna say there? Follow me and follow Lou on Instagram, Facebook, and as I say, comment with any more questions. But this was really useful for a granny house.
Oh, good on you, Terry. Thank you. See, that's brilliant. And we've got a nice smiley face there from Gateshead. That's great.
That's Antonia there.
Oh, bless. We love it.
Yeah.
Can anybody else say hello? Look.
People are joining.
I feel like we're right little nannies on social media going, what does this button do?
Speak for yourself.
You should have seen the comedy value of us trying to get, hello, oh God, no. We're ignoring that one. We don't want to talk to her. So our biggest fan. Right. You can say
Wendy's giving us the thumbs up there.
I thought you were going to say something. Hi Wendy, that's nice.
Right. Oh, we're back.
We're back.
Right. Oh, there's Georgia. Everybody's starting to talk.
Why are you starting talking now as we're
We're
leaving?
done. But we're back. I'm sure we can do another one. So if you've missed anything, yeah, I'll rope her into doing another one.
Hijack. I'm literally chained to the desk. That's what it is. I should
A
have
handcuffs still on.
That's it. I want a T-shirt sponsored by Little Learners HQ UK whatever. Right.
We're gonna arrange that.
We should go now.
We should go. But
That's it. We're hogging the limelight. We've been on a video now. This has gone to our heads. The ego.
Yeah, it totally has. But yeah, please give us feedback though. I think it would be lovely to hear if anything that you've learned in this past half an hour, whether it be small, if you put it into practice and you get a good result, it'd be great to hear back.
Yeah. It would.
So thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you later.
Bye.